So Plato lays out a couple problems with how it's possible to know anything at all in the first place. He doesn't really mention all of this stuff, but I was pointing out to you, well, you've got this problem of a triangle where this thing isn't a triangle. None of the things that you've called triangles are actually triangles. They don't actually have infinitesimally thin lines with perfectly straight sides. If such a thing did exist, you wouldn't be able to see it, and yet somehow you know what a triangle is. So that consideration seems to indicate that somehow we know what things are, even though we don't have direct sensory experience with them. And then Plato points out, well, yeah, you might expect that, because after all, there does seem to be this kind of paradox, this deep problem that he points out when he's talking with Meno about virtue. It's this problem that, if you're going to find out what something is, it seems like you already have to have an idea of what that thing is in the first place so you know what to look for and you can identify it. But if you don't know what it is, that's why you're looking for it, then you don't have an idea of what it is in the first place. And so if you're going to try and solve that problem, it seems like somehow you're going to have to know what it is you're looking for before you can even start going out and trying to find it. And so that's why Plato thinks, gosh, it seems like the only way you're going to be able to solve that problem is if you assume that you're born already knowing everything there is for you to know. Now, of course, it doesn't seem that way. It sure seems like we've got a lot of knowledge now when you're in college that you didn't have when you were first born. It might even seem like I have more knowledge now than I did back when I was in college. So it does seem like somehow we're increasing our knowledge over our lifetime. But Plato's just going to go back to that original problem and point out, yeah, but how could you even possibly do that if you didn't know what you're looking for in the first place? So his solution is to say, look, we must have already known everything there is to know when we were born. That is to say, knowledge is innate. To be innate means that it's there with you from the start. But it must just be that, the whole trauma of childbirth and all that, that just wipes a bunch of that knowledge from your mind. And so what we call learning is this process of gradually becoming to remember stuff that we already know, but that we've forgotten. And that little video that I gave you that dramatizes the rest of the dialogue at the end is Socrates' demonstration of how this process might work, where he says, look, I can take this boy that Meno has enslaved, like a terrible person, but he's enslaved this boy. The boy has had no formal education. No one's ever taught him geometry or mathematics. But Socrates says, look, I can get him to figure out how it is you take a square like this green square here and create another square that has twice the area. And I can do that without telling him how to do it. All I have to do is ask him questions that will help him remember the knowledge that he's already been born with. And so that's what Socrates is trying to demonstrate. He keeps asking him questions until this boy realizes, right, if you take the line that crosses the diagonal of the green square and create a square from that blue square there, that will have twice the area of the original square. He knew it all along. He just needed to have somebody draw it out of him. So Plato draws out from these sorts of lessons that his teacher Socrates is showing, explaining in this dialogue. He draws out this theory, this idea that in addition to the physical world that we're all in which we've got physical pieces of paper with marker marks on them that make these things that are kind of, look like triangles. In addition to this world that we inhabit, there's this whole second realm, this realm of the forms. And the realm of the forms exists outside of space and time. So in this realm of the forms, you can have an actual honest-to-God triangle with actually infinitesimally thin lines that are perfectly straight. And so the idea is that before we're born, we live outside of space and time in this realm of the forms in which we are acquainted with actual honest-to-goodness triangles. And then when we're born into this physical world, we're surrounded by a bunch of stuff that's kind of like a poor imitation, a poor copy of the things that we experienced and know about in the realm of the form. So this isn't really a triangle, it's just something that looks pretty similar to a triangle. So that when we see this, it kind of jogs our memory and we think, oh yeah, that's kind of like one of those triangles I knew about in the realm of the forms. When Socrates shows that boy these diagrams, the boy starts remembering, oh yeah, that's right, even though these lines aren't perfectly straight and they're all wobbly, I remember back when I was living in the realm of the forms, this is how things like this, lines and squares and triangles, that's how they all fit together. So Plato inaugurates this idea that a lot of our knowledge we already have in us. It's innate. And so that's going to be a theme and a hypothesis that we're going to be looking at throughout the term to see whether Plato is right. Are there further reasons to think that we really are born knowing most of our knowledge? But we'll also look at some philosophers who say, no, that's kind of like, that's madness to talk about this Platonic realm of the forms that exists outside of space and time. What does it even mean for something to exist outside of space and time? That sounds almost like nonsense. So we're going to see some other philosophers push back against this idea and say, no. You'll learn by having sensory experience. How do you know how triangles work? Well, it's by looking at diagrams like this. There's no weird, spooky realm of the forms that exists outside of space and time that we get our knowledge from. So, as we go through the course, be thinking about whether you are more convinced by Plato's reasons for having this innate knowledge, or whether you can come around to thinking in terms of what we'll call the empiricist philosophers. This idea that we get our knowledge through experience, and it's not innate.